and it didn't feel intentional. It just felt like it wasn't well thought out. And it was a mess, both off camera and on camera. Next film is what's up you guys, it's me Luke and welcome back to another video, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I have been posting more content in the past year and a half about film and TV. It's really where I've been trying to pivot my channel towards. Prior to my year-long break that I took off of YouTube where I was working a real estate job, I don't want to talk about it. It was a dark time in my life. I made a lot of content on YouTube from the end of 2017 to the beginning of 2021 about social media, video essays about social issues, YouTubers, influencers, drama commentary, that kind of vibe. But since coming back, I've really tried to dip my toes into the film and TV space. I've always loved film and TV. I used to do acting, I studied drama, I studied film at university. It's always been something that I've loved, and I really have been trying to get into it more on my channel, but in a more transitional way. So I've been making more like comedic type of content about, like, you know, my recap and commentary about the Twilight Saga, where I made a video on each film, and then I did my movie reactions to all of the 50 Shades of Grey movies and the 365 Days movies, and then I've been doing my Vampire Diaries recap and deep dive, which has been a very big series that I'm continuing into the new year. But I think the type of content that I'm going to be making in the new year, from what I've been planning, is a lot of nostalgia type of stuff. It's about like movies and TV shows that came out in like the 2000s or the early 2010s, movie franchises, TV shows, deep dives, recaps, that kind of stuff, because I am just a sucker for nostalgia. So I don't necessarily think I'm going to always be making content about, you know, movies and TV shows that are coming out in the present day. But I thought a fun video series to do at the end of every year could be a wrap-up series, which is what I'm going to be starting today for this year. So I'm going to do a video wrapping up all of the new releases that I watched in 2023 for films, another video about all the new TV shows or shows that had new seasons in 2023, and another one about all of the new albums that I listened to this year. And first up is today's video, where I'll be discussing the movies that I watched that came out this year. Now, I did only watch 10 films that were released in 2023. I have this thing where I don't like to go to the cinema alone, so if I can't find someone to go watch the movie with me, I just won't go. It's really something I'm trying to work on in the new year. And I don't know, I just think a lot of the movies I watched this year were not new releases, because to be honest, I do just prefer watching films at home. I have to really want to watch a movie to go to the cinema, and then if I do want to watch it but I didn't get to it at the cinema, I have to wait till it comes out on streaming. You guys know the drill. So I will also be talking about 8 films that came out towards the end of 2022, because some of them I only got around to watching this year, but I thought, you know, 10 just wasn't enough. So we're going to be reviewing 18 films that came out in the past year and a half since I've been back on YouTube. And also, out of all these 18 films that I'm going to be reviewing and discussing today, I'm not going to be spoiling any of them. They're all going to be spoiler free, so if you haven't watched them, that's okay. Maybe this will give you some good ideas of what to add to your watch list. But regardless of that, I'm also going to put the timestamps down below, so if you want to listen to my reviews of specific movies, you can just click around, or if you want to come back and check out a specific review of a specific movie, you can do that. And I'm also going to be going in order of star rating. So I am going to be rating these movies out of 5 stars, so we'll go from 1-star movies all the way to 5-star movies. And I also made a Letterboxd account recently. I'm still trying to like zhuzh it up and add stuff to it, but I'll link that down below if you want to check me out. But regardless of that, we have 18 films to get through, so let's start off with the lowest rated one out of them all. So starting off with my lowest rated film on this list, coming in at 1 star, is Magic Mike's The Last Dance. And this film to me just felt like a last stitch effort to drain that series of all the money that it was worth. This movie was such an utter disappointment to me. It really bothered me because it was a totally different film to what the original ones were like. So I was not going into this film expecting anything groundbreaking. I mean, obviously, if you've watched the first 2 Magic Mike's films, those were just about about sexy strippers. Like, it was a sexy stripper male movie. What else is there to say about it, really? This movie did not feel like a Magic Mike movie. There was no male strippers or sexiness or nudity. This felt like an older version of a Step Up movie. It was all about the dance, which is fine, but that's not what I signed up for when I was going to see a Magic Mike movie. I don't even know how to describe this movie in the sense of just like disappointment. Completely diverted from a genre. It went for like a PG-13 rating. Basically, like, the storyline of this movie is Mike, played by Channing Tatum, meets the socialite while bartending at her house during some function, played by Salma Hayek, and she sees something with him after he does his little stripper dance for her, so she takes him with her to London and wants him to help her revive this theater by putting on this like sexy dance show. And honestly, that is actually the only reason I gave this film a 1 star, is because I'll say that the last dance number for the ending of the film was actually kind of good. Like, once I got over the fact that there was like no stripping or anything like that and was just like there for the, you know, seductive dancing, the last dance number was good. But honestly, I would say don't waste your time with this movie. It's a flop and it should have just never been made. So coming out second last to my list at 1.5 stars is the movie Bros, starring Luke McFarlane and Billy Eichner, who I realize I actually find extremely annoying. He was complaining a lot about how this movie was tanking at the box office when it first came out and was saying that it was because straight people didn't want to go watch it. But I'm not straight, and I wanted to watch this movie, and when I did, I was thoroughly disappointed. I just felt like his character in this film was just so grating. So basically, like, the premise of the film is that there's these two characters who are both having commitment issues, which is like a tale as old as time in the gay community, and they meet and they keep bumping into each other, and they're like trying to make whatever they have between each other work, but like they keep butting heads because neither of them knows how to be in a committed relationship, and it's like their journey of trying to figure that out. I guess like that's a good premise because tackling the lack of commitment in the gay community is a good idea for a film, but something about this film to me just felt completely flat. I kept expecting more. It like is labeled as a comedy and a romance, but there was a complete lack of chemistry between the two leads. I did not believe them. I did not believe that they were into each other. And the comedy aspect, this film was not funny. It was mainly just Billy Eichner, or whatever his name is, just yelling. And I'm trying to think of like redeeming qualities of this film, and when I do think of them, it's probably like he works at like an art gallery or something. I'm trying to remember how it works. I watched this movie so long ago. And there were like these other LGBTQ characters in there, and like they, you know, tried to have like people from different sectors within the community, and they were kind of funny. I enjoyed that. But overall, this film to me was just an utter disappointment. I don't even remember why I was so excited to watch it. I think whenever there's just like a new gay rom-com, I'm always like excited because I'm hoping for the best. And I also just really don't enjoy the whole bro nature of some of the gay movies that come out. Like, I get it, it's supposed to be playing on a joke, but at what point are we going to start treating it like a relationship and not treating it like two bros who are friends who also sleep with each other? This movie is an utter mess to me, and that's why me trying to explain it is a mess, and I don't think it's worth your time. Ugh, I'm really hoping we can get out of the negatives soon. Okay, here's a movie that I was kind of conflicted about. So, Don't Worry Darling, I gave 2 stars. This movie stars, of course, Florence Pugh and Harry Styles, and you've probably heard so much about it. It was directed by Olivia Wilde. There was a lot of drama in behind the scenes. You know, at the time, Harry Styles was dating Olivia Wilde. Chris Pine and Harry Styles had an alleged feud. Shia LaBeouf was supposed to be in the movie, but then he dropped out because of directorial issues. Other cast members were thinking that Harry Styles was getting special treatment. Florence Pugh just didn't even want to be a part of it. She didn't want to promote it. The rollout for this movie was just an absolute mess. So I was excited to watch it, naturally, because I love a bit of mess. Okay, so the premise of the film, right, without spoiling it. So the characters live in this town that's very like circa Palm Springs in the 50s. The wives all stay at home and do housewife things like clean and cook. It's very repetitive. The husbands all go to work to some business called Victory that is a mystery to the wives, and they don't know anything about it, and they also don't ask questions. They act like stepward wives, but then Florence Pugh's character Alice starts to notice strange things about her surroundings and question them, and then it leads her down this path of exploring parts of the town that she's not supposed to and questioning things, and everybody's like, why are you questioning things? And she feels like she's going crazy, and then she realizes that the leader, played by Chris Pine, Frank, is actually up to some really dark stuff. And then like at the end of the movie, we find out some stuff about Harry Styles' character Jack that's shocking. Like, this movie was just trying to do too much in one film, and there was just too many plot holes by the end of it. I feel like Olivia Wilde or whoever wrote the script, whatever, thought they were being really smart, but by the end of the movie, it felt like a failed attempt at a Black Mirror episode. The fact that Black Mirror can like harness a creepy sci-fi dystopian idea better in like a hour-long episode as opposed to this 2-hour-long movie should say everything. Stylistically, yeah, the movie was beautiful to look at a lot of the time, but there was also a lot of stuff in the movie that was just like these like quick scenes or like images or flashes or clips that would just pop up up that I guess was supposed to like disorientate the viewer and like give you that unsettling feeling, but like the sounds and the visuals and stuff, I actually remember feeling very nauseous when I was watching this film. I was very uncomfortable. So like, I don't know if that was the goal, but that's not how I want to feel when watching a movie like this. It wasn't like a, oh, I'm scared, oh my god, the tension. It was like, I'm having audio visual issues, like I'm being overstimulated while watching this film. Florence Pugh, like she does with every role, gave it her all. I thought she was great. I thought Chris Pine was pretty good. Harry Styles, I'm not really sure what he's trying to do. Like, is he trying to become an actor? This is what, like his second or third film that he's done. Like, he was okay, but the accent was slipping, that's for sure. And overall, what I can say about Don't Worry Darling is I feel like it just fell flat. I feel like it was building up to something and I was excited to see what it was. And then when I learned what it was, I was like, oh. And then I just started poking holes in it. And there was just like so many plot holes. And it just ultimately didn't make any sense. And I left being like, what the hell was that? And it didn't feel intentional. It just felt like it wasn't well thought out. And it was a mess, both off camera and on camera. Next film is The Little Mermaid, another film that had so much anticipation and build up. So I rated this film at 2.5 stars. Ultimately, I have a lot to say. Look, I'm not going to talk about the controversy that came up before the film with regards to people being upset that Ariel wasn't white, because I really don't care about that. There's not enough POC Disney characters anyway, because a lot of the stuff was made during very older racist times, so I don't see any issue with diversifying the princesses in the live action movies. Who cares? It was a cartoon, you know? And regardless, if we're going to talk just appearances, I thought that Halle Bailey physically really embodied Ariel. I feel like she has that sort of like mermaid ethereal look to her. Her hair was gorgeous. I love how they had like so many different textures in her hair with like the braids and the loose bits. It was beautiful. The tail was great. Like the CGI was pretty good. I will say some of the animals was pretty creepy to me. Flounder especially creeped me out. And then like Sebastian was like, they tried to make him sort of cartoony, but then Scuttlebug was like super realistic. I just feel like they should have cartoonified the animals a little bit more. I know it's a live action, but like seeing that fish talk was making me very uncomfortable. And Scuttlebug with the rap, we need not speak of that. I think Halle Bailey's voice was the highlight of this film for me. This was what really upped the rating because she's an amazing vocalist. I mean, you know, I love Chloe x Halle, Ungodly Hours. Do I have them on the wall? Oh, they're up here. You can't see them, but I love them. So her voice was beautiful in the film. Definitely the highlight for me, but her acting was a little stale. I feel like even when she was talking, it was stale, but then when Ariel's voice got taken away, her facial expressions weren't giving me enough. I don't really know what to say. I feel like the acting was a little too subtle. And I don't necessarily know if subtle is what they were going for, or maybe it was just flat. Even when it comes to Javier Bardem as King Triton, oh my god, he was so flat. He was boring. I feel like he did not give the oomph that the original cartoon character gave. And then Melissa McCarthy, I love Melissa McCarthy. And her as Ursula, I thought was a good choice. And she is a hilarious comedic actress. I've watched almost all of her films. But in this film, once again, she was flat. The tentacles were cool, I'll give them that. Awkwafina as Scuttle, well, okay. I don't really find Awkwafina that funny. David Diggs as Sebastian was great. I thought he was a perfect voice for Sebastian. I actually thought he was kind of funny. I really liked Jessica Alexander, who played Vanessa. She was like Ursula when she became human. I thought she really embodied the role really well. I thought she was really cartoonish, which is what I want. I want theatrics from a film like this. It felt like they were taking themselves too seriously. I'm like, this is a children's film at the end of the day, adapted from a cartoon about a mermaid who gets feet, who can't talk. Like, let's put it into perspective, okay? The Prince Eric, played by Jonah Hewer-King, I think he was a great choice. I like that they gave him a musical number because he didn't originally have that in the cartoon, so that kind of like was exciting because it was new. And when it comes to the cinematography or the CGI, whatever you want to call it, the film to me was not vibrant enough. I felt like in the ocean it was too dark most of the time. I wanted more color. I wanted more saturation. When we were on land, once again, desaturated. Like, this is a Disney remake from a cartoon about like ocean animals. Give us color. I will say one of my favorite parts of the movie, besides Halle Bailey singing, was the what would I call it? Her sisters, and how they were like the different oceans, you know, and how they made all the different mermaid sisters their ethnicity based on the part of the ocean that they were from. Like, that was really a nice touch. I think that was great. And yeah, but overall, I found this movie disappointing. I found it way too long. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and I don't really think I'm gonna rewatch it, if I'm being honest. So that kind of sucks. Anyway, moving on to Theater Camp. I actually just watched this movie the other night. So I give this movie a 3 stars. This is a mockumentary style film. It's a comedy drama. It's about all of these teachers at a theater camp who have to kind of make do when the leader and the owner of the theater camp falls into a coma. So we have her son, played by Jimmy Tatro. He was so funny. He is like straight, and he's with all of these straight, I don't know that. And he's with all of these like gays and queers. That feels wrong to say, but you can say that word now. And they're like in theater camp, and it's just funny to see the juxtaposition of that. I thought he was really, really funny. I love that. I like the mockumentary style, and I was a theater kid. I didn't go to theater camp per se, but like I did a lot of theater stuff. So I felt like a lot of it was very realistic and on the nose, and the humor was really funny. And Ben Platt in the film for me was okay. I'm starting to feel like Ben Platt keeps playing the same character in a lot of things, so I'm not loving that. Molly Gordon was pretty good, actually. I haven't seen her in a role like this before. The only other thing I've seen her in was Animal Kingdom, so that was good. And Noah Gavin, he was pretty funny. I liked him. Overall, it's like a funny film, and the kids in the film were funny too. That mockumentary style really came through. It really did feel like I was watching a documentary, so they nailed the mockumentary style. When I was finished with the film, I felt like it was too short at 1 hour and 33 minutes, but the credits were very long for the film, so if anything, this is like an hour and 20-minute long film. I felt like it was too short, which is not a critique I often give to films. These days, I think a lot of films are too long. I just left the film feeling like I wanted more. I wanted more drama. I wanted more rehearsals. A lot of the scenes felt too short. I don't know. It left me wanting more, and it left me feeling like there wasn't enough. So ultimately, I just rated it a 3-star. I don't really think it's something I'll watch again, but it was cute, and I definitely think if you were a theater kid, it's a movie that you would enjoy. Alrighty, next on the list is Megan, also rated 3 stars. The horror comedy that came out at the beginning of this year that was sweeping the nations. I feel like so many people were talking about this movie, making memes about this movie. Megan eats. She does kind of slay. She's like an AI robot girl who's out to kill, but she's also out to slay, and I think it was funny. My issue with this film is I felt like they showed way too much in the trailer. Like, I already knew about the funny bits of the film before going into the movie. But anyway, it has like kind of a classic tale where like little girl's parents dies and her aunt takes care of her, and the aunt knows nothing about taking care of kids. So then we have Megan, who's like this AI robot designed to be a toy for kids, you know, it can be their friend and stuff. And that's what the aunt, played by Allison Williams, is creating. And she gives the toy to her niece, played by Violet McGraw, who I think was also in The Haunting of Hill House. She's a really good child actor. Everything seems cool, everything seems fun, but then Megan starts acting a little sus, a little weird, the AI programming goes wrong, and she starts creating a bit of a ruckus. Now, I think that the parts of the movie that were goofy or silly or funny were really great. I just wish that there were more of them, because ultimately this movie was not scary at all. And that's fine. I like a horror comedy, but I think they should have leaned into the comedy more and leaned into the silliness of it more. I feel like it had a really good premise, and this is the type of film where I feel like if they have a sequel, it could be really, really good. And it could be one of those like horror classics, even though to me it wasn't really scary. But I had a fun time watching this film. When I was in the cinema, people were laughing quite a lot. And if I think you should watch it, I think you should. Next up, we have Ticket to Paradise, which is also a 3-star movie. It is a rom-com starring Julia Roberts, Hertz, and George Clooney. Both such charismatic actors. I love them. They actually filmed part of this movie in Australia, so hey. What the? Anyway, so basically what this film is about is this ex-husband and ex-wife who share a daughter together, played by Caitlin Dever, who was in Booksmart, who I enjoyed in that film, but I kind of find her annoying in this film, but I digress. I find people annoying kind of easily, don't I? Anyway, so they divorced when she was pretty young, and they're going to her college graduation to like become a lawyer, if I can remember correctly. And she goes on like a holiday or a spring break or something to Bali. She ends up falling in love with this guy, and she gets engaged, and then her parents come over there for the engagement and the wedding, and they want to put a stop to it because she doesn't want to go back to America to pursue becoming a lawyer, even though she studied at a university. Instead, she wants to like live in Bali and like catch fish and live with her husband or something. I don't really know. But the film to me was really, really cute. I actually thought that the dynamic between these two characters, Georgina and David, played by Clooney and Roberts, their chemistry was off the charts. In the beginning of the film, when they were just like so mad at each other, and like the enemies to lover thing, like the banter between them in the beginning of the film, and then seeing how their relationship develops towards the end is so heartwarming, touching, but like also, like I said, funny. Daughter's storyline I did not really care for that much, and her best friend, played by Billie Lourd, I normally love Billie Lourd. She felt kind of flat for me in this film, so that's why it's kind of lower in my ranking, because although I loved Julia Roberts and George Clooney scenes and them together and their dynamic together, anytime they had to do something to deal with the daughter, or like the daughter and the friend were together, or the daughter and her partner, like I just kind of lost interest. But it was fun, and it was a nice scenery. I love the tropical vibe. I like to see some of like the Bali culture. That was great too, and I think you should definitely watch it. It's a fun time. I don't think I would watch it again though, because it's not one of those things that has that rewatchability factor. Something that does have a rewatchability factor for me is the film No Hard Feelings. Now, this film I was very excited for because I'm a J-Lo stan. I love Jennifer Lawrence. I think she is hilarious. However, I still rated this film 3 stars because she was the only good part about this film. Her co-star, Andrew Barth Feldman, he was bland. He was very much giving cracker with nothing on the cracker, or like bread with nothing on the bread. Like, I needed something more from him. I feel like they could have played up the dorkiness. They could have played up the nerdiness of him. Something to that effect. I don't know. I actually also wish that his parents were in the film more, played by Matthew Broderick and Laura Benatti, because I love those actors and I think they were funny. But basically the premise of it is Jennifer Lawrence's character named Maddie is losing her family home because she can't afford the mortgage and like her house is just in a financial crisis. And she finds an ad for this couple who wants someone to go on a date with their son. And they have their son who's about to go off to college. He's 19 years old and he has never like done anything. He hasn't had his first kiss, lost his virginity, go to a party, get drunk. Like, he's just, you know, an antisocial nerd. So they want to hire a girl to like casually go on a date with him and like develop some sort of relationship with him and help him get those new experiences without him knowing. And J-Lo's character, who is in her 30s, shows up and wants to apply for the role. She manages to get her way in and everything ensues from there, and it's honestly very funny. But I felt like everything in this film was on Jennifer Lawrence's shoulders. I feel like she needed more support from her other actors if they just gave a bit more pizzazz, a bit more comedy. But ultimately, I love Jennifer Lawrence. I would love to see her in more comedic stuff. I'm honestly amazed by any actor who is great at being funny and is also great at being serious. A lot like Sandra Bullock, it reminds me of. So yeah, I would rewatch it again for her, but honestly was a little disappointed in everything else besides her. Moving on to the next film is Jordan Peele's 2022 Nope. This is rated 3.5 stars by yours truly. So I love Jordan Peele's previous movies. Get Out was honestly just pivotal. I feel like it was one of those movies that everybody spoke about. It was so unique, such a cool concept. And then Us came out, and once again, great concept. I really loved Us as well. Like, he does so well at creating suspense. He's really great at it. Like, it's horror, but in like a clever way. Like, he doesn't go for those like slapstick moves or that like cheap jump scare vibe. Like, he really does build the suspense. And I found Us and Get Out to be incredibly creepy, but also really well written. Although I will say Us has a lot of plot holes by the end of it. I feel like Jordan Peele's movies, he's not really looking to completely explain how his idea works, because, you know, all 3 of his films have some sort of like creepy sci-fi element to it, but they're never really explained. And I understand that that's probably not the point, but for me, I always like things to be clear. I want to know why things are the way they are, and I want to know how it's possible. I want an explanation. I don't want it to be like, that's just how it is, and I'm just supposed to believe that it works, even though it doesn't make sense. But it's kind of hard for me to explain what I mean without spoiling any of the other films. But getting into Nope, I was very excited about this film. The trailers were very intriguing. I love a trailer that doesn't just show you what the movie is about. Like, when you just watch a trailer and you're like, oh, I felt like I just watched the movie. This trailer created intrigue. I honestly did not really know what the film was about. And once I actually got into the film, I will admit that the beginning of the film was incredibly slow. Like, when I was watching it with my sister, we were like 30, 40 minutes in and we were like, should we keep going? Like, it was tough to get through in the beginning. I wasn't really sure where things were going. But then once it really got into it and the action started happening, that's when things got really exciting. So the best way that I can describe this is these 2 characters, OJ and Emerald, played by Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer, which both are amazing actors. Their dynamic in this film was great. Keke, she's hilarious in every role. Loved her. They're brother and sister who are running this horse farm in California where these horses are used in like films and stuff, but their father passed away, so they're trying to take over and keep the farm afloat. And they see some strange activity going on up in the sky. And the film is about them trying to figure out what it is, and it's really cool how they do that. And then when they finally realize what it is and the action that goes on with that, it's really entertaining. The reason that I didn't give it higher than a 3.5 stars is because although it did build great suspense, when we got to the climax, for me, all that suspense went away. When I actually saw what was in the sky, I was very disappointed. I felt like it was creepier before it fully revealed itself, and I felt like it didn't really align with the rest of the theme. And then there was this other storyline in the movie that I'm still not entirely sure how it clicks with the rest of it. I just felt like there was a bit too much going on. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes long, and I think the movie could have been shorter if that other storyline was cut and if we picked up the pace a bit in the beginning. I think it had a bit of a pacing issue. But once you get over the first hour of the film, like once you get into like the second and third act, it is a wild ride. It is a lot of fun. But ultimately, it's not really what I was expecting. I think maybe I do hold Jordan Peele to a bit of a higher standard because of how much I loved his previous 2 films, and out of the 3 films that he has made, this would be my least favorite, but still definitely worth the watch, especially for the climax. Moving on to the next film, which is The Outlaws, that I've rated 4 stars. I don't know how many of you would have watched this film. It did not have a theatrical release. It's a Netflix film. I found out about it because it has Nina Dobrev in it as one of the cast members. Nina Dobrev is from The Vampire Diaries, if you don't know, and I love Nina Dobrev. She's like one of those actors that I'll just watch everything they're in because I love them as a person. So I saw this and I was like, sign me up. The cast for this film is honestly amazing, the 4. So basically what it is Adam Devine plays this character Owen, who is engaged to Nina Dobrev's character Parker, and he has never met her in-laws. See how the movie's called Outlaws? And he finally does, and they are played by Pierce Brosnan and Ellen Barkin. Such amazing actors, and they were such a great duo as a couple in this film. They had such a mystique about them, but then also really great comedic timing. And Adam Devine is kind of a hit and a miss for me. Like, sometimes I find him really funny and sometimes I don't, depending on what he's in. But this film, he was hysterical. He was amazing. I will say that Nina's character Parker was a bit more of a straight character. Like, you know, when I say straight, like in comedic films, you always gotta have the straight character who's kind of just like the stable character. She was that, and I will say that worked because Nina Dobrev, while I love her, I don't think she's a very good comedic actress. I would love to see her in more serious roles. I feel like she keeps trying to go down that comedic path and I don't really think it's working for her. But regardless, she was still pretty decent in this film. But the pairing of Pierce Brosnan and Ellen Barker, and then when they got together with Adam Devine, when he finally learns that his in-laws are actually criminals and his fiance, Nina Dobrev's character, didn't know that her parents were criminals her whole life, and just everything that ensues, it's like a heist because there's like these evil people that are after them, they're outlaws. It's great. I will say that the reason that the film didn't quite get up to a 5-star for me, even though I love an action comedy and I thought all those elements were great, is because of the bad guys. The bad guys to me were not bad enough or funny enough. They felt a bit flat. And I also felt like I wish that we saw some flashbacks of Parker with her parents when she was younger to see how her parents kept them being criminals a secret from her, because that was a big part of the plot, is that she never knew. And I'm like, how did they manage to keep that from their daughter her whole life? It was just, I don't know. I felt like we needed a little bit more than that, but at the end of the day, it was a comedy film. And I just want to say Adam Devine's parents, played by Richard Kind and Julie Haggerty, they were so hilarious. I wanted more of them. Just honestly hilarious, a lot of fun. I highly recommend you guys go watch this film. It's on Netflix. Please give it a go. I'm sure you'll find it funny. Next up, we have Barbie, rated 4 stars. Honestly, what feels like to me the biggest film of the year. You know, I didn't watch Oppenheimer, not really into war movies. I might watch it, who knows. But other than Oppenheimer, Barbie was the biggest film of the year. I mean, we had Barbenheimer, of course. And I was, like everybody else, so excited for this film. At the same time, when we saw the promo prior to the film, I did not know what to totally expect. I saw how the director, Greta Gerwig, was talking about what they were doing and building like the actual physical sets of the film, where they were building like Barbie's playhouse and stuff, and how it looked very cartoonish. And I was really interested in that. And then when we had Margot Robbie announced to be cast for Barbie and Ryan Gosling for Ken, like, could you think of a more perfect Barbie and Ken? Like, could you? It was amazing. And then I loved how in the film we had all the other Barbies and Kens, like they're just all called Barbies and Kens, and they had like a great diverse cast. All the Barbies had different professions and were like interested in different things, and they all looked different. You know, Margot Robbie's character is called stereotypical Barbie with like, you know, the tall, blonde, white, blue eyes, all that kind of stuff. And then we had all the diverse cast of Barbies and Kens, and I liked all the references. We had like Midge, who's the pregnant Barbie that was discontinued. We have Alan, who's Ken's best friend who shares all of his clothes, played by Michael Cera. That was hilarious. And we had Weird Barbie, which is like when the Barbie's hair and everything gets messed up because a kid's playing with them too hard, which is played by Kate McKinnon. And overall, I thought that the plot was really interesting. So basically, there's like Barbie land where everything's flipped. In the real world, we have the patriarchy where men are in power and women aren't. And in the Barbie world, it's flipped. So all the women are in power and the men aren't. And I thought it was just so interesting how when Barbie is starting to have all of these like malfunctions happening to her because the child playing with her in the real world is upset and it's messing with her, she has to go into the real world and try and fix it. And I thought like how we got to see them travel to the real world was so funny. And then when they were there, them interacting with the different people in the real world and all that kind of stuff was just great. And I just wanted to be in Barbie land a bit more. I will admit, I feel like we spent a bit too much time in the real world. And I also felt like the real world, there were moments where I was like, this is a bit too deep or a bit too sad for a Barbie movie. There's one particular scene where she was talking to like this older lady. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but it's like about the meaning of life. Like a lot of this movie is Barbie trying to figure out the point of life and whatnot. And there's just some moments where I was like, this is was just tonally so different to what we were experiencing before. And then there's this huge feminist speech at the end, which I think is great and seems like common knowledge, but there's a lot of people who probably wouldn't know a lot of that stuff, especially men going to watch the film, so that was great. I just feel like this film, there was a lot going on. There was a lot of times where I felt like my emotions were going up and down, and the pacing, and then we were going back and forth between the real world and Barbie world. I just felt like it was a little bit too chaotic. And I also was kind of confused at times because I felt like Ken felt like more of a main character than Barbie. And don't get me wrong, Ryan Gosling was amazing in this role. It was like one of his best performances. He was born to play Ken. He was absolutely hilarious. But I felt like we got more Ken. We got like a bunch of musical numbers at the end of the movie that were all the Kens, and I didn't get a Barbie musical number. That's what really griped me, is why did we get all these Ken musical numbers, which were hilarious and amazing and I loved them, but not one Barbie musical number? Like, what's up with that? Is it just because Ryan Gosling can sing? I don't know. But Margot Robbie played the role so well. You can really tell how she embodied the toy, like the Barbie toy. Like, she felt so different from like a human. All of them did. All of the actors who played the Barbies and the Kens, you could tell they had a lot of fun with it, and they really delved deep into the role of like playing a toy. And when we were in Barbie World, it was just so fun, and the toys looked so realistic. It was just, I felt like I was looking at like a toy dollhouse, and the people were small. Like the set dressing, the costuming, it was so good that anytime we were in the real world, I was like, get me back to Barbie World. That's how I felt. But, you know, ultimately the movie was amazing. I've watched it twice. The first time I watched it, I had a horrible cinema experience because I was down at the bottom with some kid kicking the back of my chair. I could barely see it. The second time I watched it, I was just amazed. I really got a much deeper appreciation for it. So maybe I just need to watch it again, because I think now I know what the film is about. It's fun, but it's also sending a message about feminism and double standards and girlhood and all these different things. So I try and appreciate it and love it as much as I can. And I am a feminist and I love my girls, I love women, but at the end of the day, I'm not one. So maybe I can't fully understand the depth of it that a woman would. But ultimately, it was an amazing movie. It's just a 4 stars instead of 5 because I feel like it's a bit clunky. I wanted more Barbie. I wanted a Barbie musical number. And the emotional beats were a little bit all over the place. The pacing, but yeah, it was great. I loved it. So next up, we have The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, rated a 4 stars. I recently saw this movie. I mean, it only came out on the 16th of November. This movie was great. You know, I read all the Hunger Games books and I watched all the movies multiple times, you know, when it was airing and stuff. But I never read this book because I'm not really into prequels that much. It's not really my thing. But, you know, there's a lot of hype about this movie and the trailer looked really intriguing. And honestly, what really drew me to wanting to watch it besides all of that was Viola Davis and Peter Dinklage. I mean, I've watched Game of Thrones and I've watched How to Get Away with Murder and I've watched other stuff with those other 2 actors before, but I was just really excited to see what kind of roles they would play in this film because they're both so great at eccentric characters and they definitely fit the bill for that. So basically the premise of this film, you probably already know it by now, but like this film takes place many, many years before the original Hunger Games trilogy. It takes place 10 years after the war. It's like a dystopian version of America, and it follows the character of Coriolanus Snow, who is the villain of the Hunger Games trilogy, President Snow, and this is kind of like his origin story, okay? And it was back when the Hunger Games wasn't as much of a spectacle as it was in the trilogy. In the present day movies in the Hunger Games, they have like the 24 tributes, 12 boys, 12 girls, all between the ages of 12 and 18 from the 12 districts. They all get put in an arena. They have to fight to the death. It's about reminding them of the suffering so that they don't up riot and cause another war. It's very dark and twisted, but very entertaining. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in this prequel that connected to the trilogy. We got to see how different the capital was back then and how even though people, you know, were like considered more wealthy because they're not in the districts, they still really weren't because everybody's still dealing with the aftermath of the war, and how this was like the first Hunger Games where they had mentors, and the mentors for the tributes were actually students from the capital's high school, one of which being Coriolanus Snow, President Snow, and he gets assigned the tribute of Lucy Gray, played by Rachel Ziegler, who I've heard so much about but I've never watched her in anything before, so I was excited to see her perform in this. So she's one of the tributes from District 12 and she is a musician, and we get to see the connection between the 2 of these characters, and it was just so interesting to see their chemistry, and I wanted something to happen between them for so long. I just could feel it, and it was interesting to see how the different high school students in the capital thought about the Hunger Games and the tributes and their different opinions and stuff. Like one of Snow's best friends, Sir Jonas, has some really strong opinions about how wrong what they were all doing was, and then some of the other more snobby students were like, I just want my tribute to win. I want the prize. So there's like this prize that they're all trying to get. And Coriolanus wants it. Oh, so he can get a scholarship to university so he can make money for his family. It's really interesting because I found like a disconnect when I was watching this. I kept having to remind myself that Coriolanus was President Snow from the trilogy because, I mean, one, Tom Blythe, who plays him, is just real sexy. But two, I felt like he was just being so nice and he was just, I felt like he really cared for Lucy. But then there were the moments where I was like, wait, I have to remind myself he's doing this for the prize. And I felt like I could just never really put my finger on what his intentions were. So the time by the end of the movie, I don't think this is a spoiler because we all know President Snow is the evil from the trilogy. By the time he turns and like he becomes evil, it was such a shock because I had to really think back on what had happened previously and how we got to that point. And it was just really clever. I think Tom Blythe did an amazing job bringing this character to life and really performing in a way that was so subtle that you had to really focus and look for the hints of evil and complexity within his character. I mean, everyone in this cast, like Hunter Schafer played his cousin Tigra. She wasn't in the movie much, but when she was, it was a really great way of like grounding Coriolanus and making him remind himself who he is, but then to the point where he loses himself, she can't really say much, so she has to express it in ways that the audience, if you're paying attention enough, can understand. I think Hunter Schafer did an amazing job with that too, and Rachel Zegler, one, her voice is amazing. She's a beautiful singer. I saw some people complaining that there was singing in this movie, but it's called The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so what were you expecting? Her accent was also great, performance was great, the chemistry between her and Tom Blythe was amazing. Peter Dinklage is the game maker, so he makes the games, and he was really interesting as well, seeing how the games came to be and how the Hunger Games began and how he feels about it now. And then Viola Davis plays this doctor, Dr. Volumina Gal, and that was so interesting to me because, you know, in the original Hunger Games trilogy, they have all of these like mutts and mutated animal creatures and stuff. This is kind of where we get to see how those were created, and she was just hilarious. She really embodied the character because she was so eccentric and camp, but you could tell she really believed in what she was doing, and she felt a bit cuckoo. I'm gonna just say that. And overall, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I thought the cinematography was beautiful, the music was great, the acting was outstanding, not a single performance I didn't enjoy, and the storyline was really, really interesting. I would say the reason I can't quite give it a 5 stars is because this movie dragged for me towards the end. It is 2 hours and 38 minutes long. It's split into 3 parts. The first 2 parts, I didn't really have a pacing issue with. I will say that when you first jump into the movie, I felt kind of confused. It took me a minute to really get a grasp on what was going on, but then when I did, I was good. When we actually get to see the arena and the Hunger Games, that was a bit of a shock for me because, like I said, the original trilogy, the Hunger Games were so elaborate that this time around, because the Hunger Games weren't really developed yet to that point where it was like a full spectacle. I mean, they even say in the movie that they're losing ratings and they got to find a way to improve it and stuff. The arena was a little lackluster for me. It wasn't too exciting. I mean, it was exciting when the games started and stuff, but I guess maybe just because my expectations are based on the original trilogy, but it's not too bad because the time in the arena doesn't go on for that long. And then the third act of the movie, I can't really explain it to you because it would just be too many spoilers, but the third act of the movie for me is where it dragged, and it kind of felt like a different movie. It was good towards like the final act of it, but to me this kind of felt like, I don't know, because I don't want to say this should have been a limited series because I don't think I would have done it as well, so I think a movie is good, but maybe something in the film they could have cut out to reduce it in time a little bit. It just felt too long, but I don't even want to say that because then we get the whole part 1, part 2 thing. And it was directed by the same director as the original trilogy, Francis Lawrence, so he directed all the other Hunger Games films, and he has come out and said that he regretted doing a part 1 and part 2 for Mockingjay. And I know you did, because those movies kind of sucked. I guess it's not something I can complain about. At the same time, I feel like movies for me feel longer when I'm in the cinema because the chairs are so uncomfortable and it's not my usual environment. But if I watch this again at home, maybe I won't notice the length. But this movie was a lot of fun. We'll leave it at 4 for now. My opinions can always change in the future. So next up we have Do Revenge, which I rated a 4.5 stars. So this movie came out on Netflix last year in September. It's a Netflix original film, and I was not really that interested in watching this film when it came out because of its cast. Like, if I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, this film has a cast of a bunch of different actors from different teen shows that are also on Netflix. We have Maya Hawke, who is from Stranger Things. We have Camila Mendes, who's from Riverdale. We have Austin Abrams, he's from Euphoria, so that's on Netflix. Aisha Bowe, she's from 13 Reasons Why. Jonathan Davis, he's from Outer Banks. Not that I don't like a lot of those shows. I mean, I don't like 13 Reasons Why, and I don't like Riverdale, and I'm losing interest for Stranger Things. things. I just more was expecting it to be kind of like cringy, kind of like not that entertaining, and I misjudged it. So I finally got around to watching it this year, and this movie was a buttload of fun. I had such a fun time watching this movie. The premise of it is kind of like similar to Strangers on the Train, where both of these characters, Eleanor and Drea, played by Maya Hawke and Camila Mendes, feel as though they've been wronged by various parties. One, a boyfriend who did something messed up to them, and one, a previous best friend who did something messed up to them. So they decide to get together and perform each other's crimes, so basically get revenge for each other. So, you know, one's gonna get revenge for the other person's enemy, the other one, you get it. And it's set in this like preppy private school where everybody's wearing pastel colors, and it's a very camp, exaggerated version of Gen Z today. All of these characters in high school are trying so hard to be like woke and politically correct when a lot of them are actually devilish and really mean, but because they're trying to be so outwardly politically correct and woke and all that kind of stuff, they actually forget that as people themselves, they're actually horrible. So I thought that was a really fun commentary on the way things are in today's day and age. And the characters were just really, really fun. I thought that Camila Mendes was definitely the star of the film for me. I think her performance as Drea was amazing. Maya Hawke, in the beginning of the film, I kind of didn't care for her, but by the end of the film, when we got a little twist, oh, she came through. The twist as well, I was not expecting. I just love a film where people are like getting revenge on people. Like, you know, The Other Woman, where the three women who were all cheated on by the same guy come together, or John Tucker Must Die. Like, I love films where people are getting revenge on someone. And it was just so much fun and such a good twist that I wasn't expecting. And the characters all felt so unique in of themselves, and they all, like, all the actors really played to their strengths. I will say that the aspect of the film that made me lower the star rating was the romance. I kind of feel like they might as well just not have even had romance subplots in this film because they were so lackluster. The romance just felt like the director or the creator of the film felt obligated to have a romance in the movie, and it was just an afterthought. So if anything, it just wasted screen time, and they just didn't need to have it, really. This film was about friendship at the end of the day, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I will say the climax at the end, I kind of wanted a little bit more. The like bad guy, Max, played by Austin Abrams, I didn't believe him as like a macho popular guy, but maybe that was the point. I don't know, that they didn't get someone stereotypical for that role. I don't know. I thought the movie was really great. I mean, maybe I love it so much because I went into it with such low expectations that it blew me out the water, but I think this movie is a lot of fun for someone like a Gen Z type of person. I think you'd find it a lot of fun, or like a millennial who sometimes finds Gen Z cringe. It's a really good satirical film, so I highly recommend you check it out. Anyway, next movie is Bullet Train. This movie came out on the 5th of August 2022. I'm sure a lot of you have watched it by now, but this movie is just a lot of fun. I won't talk about it too much because everything I have to say is pretty positive. I gave it a 4.5 stars. It's a ensemble cast, sort of, and they're all on the same bullet train in Japan, and they all have these like different crimes and intentions and things that are going on. It's giving heist, it's giving speed. The fact that we had all these elements of like them being on the bullet train and how it was like going and on the different compartments. I love movies set on trains. I really do. And this movie just really kept me on my toes. I didn't know what to expect. I will say in the beginning of the movie, it was a little confusing. Maybe it's just because you're getting introduced to so many different characters, and then some of them speak different languages, so you got to take your bearings. But this movie was absolutely a lot of fun. It was so enjoyable, and like I just did not know what to expect next. Now I want to watch it again. And I can't really tell you what it's about without spoiling it, but heist on a train, ensemble cast, criminals, people who have different agendas, like twists and turns. You don't know who to trust. Like, what else can I say? Watch this movie. Next up, we have Saltburn. Okay, one of the most recent movies I've watched on this list. This movie was so different than I was expecting. I feel like I might have watched the trailer when it first came out, but it came out so long ago that I didn't fully remember it. I went into this thinking this was a twisted gay love story, like a Call Me By Your Name if it was dark and twisted. I don't know, it definitely was not that. It stars Barry Keoghan as Oliver and Jacob Elordi as Felix, and they both go to Oxford University in London, set in 2006, and they develop a friendship, and Felix invites Oliver to come home with him to the summer to his family's estate called Saltburn, because Oliver doesn't have a good family life and he's in a dark place because he just lost a parent, etc., etc. So he takes him there for the summer, and a lot of crazy fun stuff ensues. We have some amazing characters in Felix's family. First of all, his mother, named Elspeth, played by Rosamund Pike. She was my favorite part of this movie. Oh my god, she was so funny. I don't know if I've seen her in a funny role before. I mean, I know her from Gone Girl and she was great in that, but this movie was hilarious. I love movies about like out of touch, snobby, rich people who say rude things without realizing they're being rude. Oh my god, it was just so much fun. Her daughter and Felix's sister, Venetia, was a very interesting character to me. I didn't quite know what her intentions were and what she was up to until we got to a certain point, and I found that really entertaining and interesting. And then we have their cousin Barlow, who I found incredibly annoying, but was a necessary character. And then we have their father, Sir James, played by Richard E. Grant, who was kind of just there. I want to explain this movie to you, but it would literally just spoil it. Like, and I honestly, anytime someone's asked me about this movie, I just say to go into it blind. But what I can say is the acting was phenomenal. I do kind of feel like I wish there was a bit more development with Jacob Elordi and Barry Keoghan's friendship in the film. I felt it a little bit unbelievable. Like, I struggled to understand why Jacob Elordi's character would be friends with him. I felt like Oliver wasn't charming enough. He was giving more awkward. I don't know. He started to change a little bit. Barry Keoghan did such a great job with this role. Like, now that I'm thinking about the character, the way that it kind of like his character changed throughout the film and the way he acted around different people, not what I was expecting. And the estate of Saltburn was beautiful. The cinematography was great. The music, the vibes. Like, I just love this film with all of my being. It was fantastic. Everything about it's outstanding. I want to check out more of her Emerald Fennell stuff because she directed and wrote this film and she did a great job. So highly recommend you check it out. Next up, we have The Menu. This movie came out end of last year. I gave it a 5 stars. This movie stars Anya Taylor-Joy as Margaret and Nicholas Hoult as Tyler. They are a couple that go to this exclusive fancy restaurant that is on an isolated island that is very hard to get into, and they get on this boat with all these other cast members who are like all the rich and the elite. They're all very snobby. They all come from different sectors, you know, and they're going to this island wondering what they're going to experience because you're not allowed to post about this island, like this restaurant experience in social media. It's very exclusive. So they finally get to this restaurant on this isolated island and they notice things are very weird, right? And they have the main chef, Chef Chef Slovak, I'm going to call him, played by Ralph Fiennes, who was phenomenal in this role. Like Ray Fiennes or Ralph Fiennes, I don't know. But he also played Voldemort in Harry Potter, fun fact. He was fantastic in this role, as were Anya and Nicholas, but he really stood out for me. His mannerisms and the subtlety and his facial expressions and his intensity, like he was very scary. Like this movie is a horror comedy and it definitely has that, both of those elements, and it teetered the line of both of them so genuinely well. And I just did not know what I had no idea what was going to happen throughout this film. Like I was so confused. I was like, I'm watching a movie about people eating at a restaurant. What is going on? But you just don't know where this film is going to take you. And it is thrilling and it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and the performances are fantastic. And the overall message about like wealth and greediness and all these different things by the end of it is just so poignant and it's perfection. I cannot fault this movie. It's one of my favorite movies that I watched last year, so I highly recommend you guys check it out. Alrighty, our next film, which is another 5 stars, is A24's Bodies, 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 directed by Helena Rain. This is a horror comedy. It is basically about a group of 20-somethings who are having a house party in a remote mansion. They're like all kind of rich, they're Gen Z, and they're having a bit of fun, but then they get isolated because a hurricane hits and they're trapped in this mansion. So they're getting drunk, getting high, and they decide to play a game called Bodies, 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 where one of them gets picked as the killer and they have to guess who it is. But then killings actually start happening. It's like a slasher murder whodunit film. And in the beginning of the film, I was a bit overwhelmed because they were like all talking over each other and there was a lot of like Gen Z dialogue. But honestly, I do think they did a great job of it because these days there's a lot more movies and shows that are coming out trying to use Gen Z dialogue or slang or whatever, incorporating social media and TikTok and what have you. And a lot of the times it's kind of cringe and painful to watch. But I think this film did a really great job of depicting how Gen Z speak and how they're obsessed with like seeming, I don't know, like hard done by, or like that they all have like a chip on their shoulder. I'm part of this group, you know, so I should say we. And like, you know, they all want to be politically correct, but they also don't want to be too rich, and they want to be like successful, but they want to like have built it up themselves, and like all the just different political social justice dynamics within Gen Z. And just the actors in this film, specifically Rachel Sennett and Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson was pretty funny too, but Rachel Sennett in this film was absolutely hilarious. I love her. She was honestly one of the only saving graces of The Idol. She was so great in this role, and just the dynamic between these group of friends as they all start to turn on each other, trying to figure out who is killing people in this house and like how the murders happen and how most of the light in the film comes from their cell phones, like so symbolic of that. I love this film, you guys. It was such a fun ride. It's really quick as well. It's an hour and a half. I would pay you if you could guess the ending of this film. It was such a twist and a turn, and I love being surprised in like a horror film because it just doesn't happen often, and I need more films like this from A24 or just anywhere, but I feel like no other film could have done it this well besides A24. It's such a fun fine line to depict Gen Z and the way they talk and the way they act and like the way it all happened was just done so well. I love films that can make me scared and laugh at the same time, and this movie did. There were so many times where I got a genuine fright or I was genuinely scared in this film, and then other times where I just could not stop laughing. It was amazing. Anyway, moving into my final film that I want to discuss, which is Red, White, and Royal Blue. This is another 5 stars. This is my favorite movie on this list, probably. I watched it like 3 times in like 2 weeks. This movie is based on a book as well, and it is the story of the Prince of England, played by Nicholas Galitzine, and the son of the President of the United States, played by Taylor Zeka Perez. The President of the United States being Uma Thurman, and then she also has her Secretary of State, played by Zahara Zahai. She was hilarious in this. But honestly, this movie, let me just like talk off the cuff here. So basically what happens is there is a publicized political incident between these two characters, and they are forced to go on a campaign to show that they are friends. It's like an enemies to lovers storyline. And getting to hear about how being the Prince of England versus like the son of the President of America, and how they have their different challenges based on those roles and the expectations of them in those political climates. And then we've got, you know, one being a Latina and the other one being in a really traditional role, and how they both start to fall in love with each other and they feel as though they have to keep it a secret, and how that all comes out and what it's like being two gay public political figures, you know, in such a high level. I don't even know, because that's not really why I like it. I'm not that interested in the political stuff of it. I mean, I do like it because it creates like this forbidden romance love story, which is just, I'm a sucker for that. But genuinely, the chemistry between these two characters was off the charts. I was so giddy. I hadn't felt this way about two characters since I watched Call Me By Your Name, and even then this like trumps that on so many levels, especially now that Armie Hammer ruined it for me. But the chemistry between these two characters was just phenomenal, and I would get giddy, I would get goosebumps, my heart would flutter, I was obsessed. I cried twice, I think, when I first watched this movie. It's just so great, and like I'm getting giddy thinking about it now, because I feel like it's so difficult to find good gay love stories, you know. I don't have a lot of faith in male-male relationships in the real world from my own personal experience, and getting to see a healthy one depicted that's about the romance and all that kind of stuff in a film was just great. And the intimacy scenes, the sex scene that was in this film was really well done, and none of the intimacy scenes were done in a way that was like for shock factor or for like raunchiness or sexiness. It all had like a romantic element to it, or a lusty element to it. And it was really funny because it was like people online from this film found out that gay men can have missionary sex, so that was kind of funny too. Honestly, the only thing I think is kind of funny though is like Nicholas Galitzine and Taylor Zahir Perez played the roles a bit differently, in the sense where Taylor went more down the comedic route and Nicholas meant more down the like Oscar, I'm getting an Oscar for this film route. So that was a little bit funny. Sometimes there was a little bit of like a jarringness to that because they were acting a bit differently, but I just love this film. It's perfection in my eyes. It's a 5 out of 5, and I need every deleted scene because I know someone said there was like a 3-hour version of this movie. Give it to me now, Matthew Lopez, the director of this film. Give it to me. But anyway, you guys, that said, I know there's been a lot of gushing about the last couple movies because they were all 5 stars, so naturally yes. But ultimately, as you can see from the 18 films that were released in the past year and a half that I watched that I can remember, Magic Mike's Last Dance was the worst, and to me, Red, White, and Royal Blue was the best. These are obviously all my opinions. I'm sure a lot of you will have very different opinions, and I welcome your opinions in the comments down below. I hope you don't get too offended if I said anything bad about a movie that you like, but I would love to hear what you have to say, regardless of positive or negative, but let's just be respectful to each other. And yeah, guys, I know this was a bit like jumbled and like just really quick reviews. Next year, I really want to do videos dedicated to like movies and TV shows that are a lot more well thought out and in-depth, but I thought it would be fun to do a couple wrap-up videos before the end of the year. So my next one will be about the TV shows that I watched in the past year, either new seasons or new shows. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe and turn on the post notifications bell if you have not already. Follow me on all my social media, link down below. Letterboxd will be down there as well. If you haven't checked out my Patreon, please do so. Lots of bonus extra videos over there. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see my next video. And as always, I hope that you have a great day or night wherever you're on the world. Bye!